Welcome back, Matt. Here we are at podcast number 30. We're both in really strange places. I'm in a parking lot in Disneyland right now, just talking in my car. That's how we roll, because we want to get this out to you every Wednesday. And Matt, where are you at?
I'm in Toronto, actually. I'm just south of Toronto in a bedroom community called Oakville. So I'm here for work, and so we're both in odd places today. We're both burning through our data, recording this podcast, but it's good. It's good that we can keep things going in this day and age.
Well, let me just give a plug for Mint, even though they don't sponsor us. They just upped my data from 5 gigabytes a month to 8. So maybe we'll burn through 3 gigabytes today doing this, but I won't have lost anything. So that's good news.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have lots to talk about. The first thing, you pulled up an article a little bit about Facebook in Canada. What's going on there?
Yeah. So this all gets back into these big tech organizations, and it kind of lifts up the curtain of what they're doing with governments behind the scenes. So this actually got leaked by somebody in the United Kingdom who ended up getting documents that showed that Facebook was pressuring the Canadian government to have a double standard when it comes to privacy issues on Facebook specifically. So Facebook said to the government of Canada, we want to open up a data center, and it's going to be huge, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to employ a whole bunch of people. But if Facebook is going to make this investment in Canada, then they needed the government to turn a blind eye to some of the privacy laws that we have here.
So where are they going to open up shop in Canada? Is it in Toronto?
Well, I think it was somewhere in the GTA, the Greater Toronto area. However, it never came to pass. So what Facebook was doing is they said, we're going to open this data center. It's going to make all these jobs. And then when they weren't getting the support from the Canadian government when it came to privacy laws, I think things kind of dialed back a bit. So basically what they asked for is they said, your privacy laws can be good and valid for Canadian citizens. But for any non-Canadian citizens that we're going to keep in this data center in Canada, we don't want you to look and see what we're doing. So in other words, turn a blind eye. We're going to have a double standard. Canadian citizens are protected by your laws, but a lot of people are thinking there weren't going to be any Canadian citizens in these databases either. Because it turns out, according to these leaked documents, that Facebook has talked to many other governments, including the United States, Brazil, United Kingdom, India. So they were setting up these data centers throughout the world that were most likely going to house data from non-citizens of those countries where those data centers are.
Very interesting. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think it's shady and it's crooked. I think that my biggest problem that I have with it is the pressure that they're actually putting on these governments to turn blind eyes for non-citizens of their country. And you can see how perhaps some politicians would feel that, oh, that's okay. It's not Canadian citizens, or it's not Indian citizens or Brazilian citizens, right? They just say, well, those people have nothing to do with me. So you can see how it's this slippery slope. And then it gets even worse because it turns out that one of the members of parliament, one of their secretaries actually, was putting pressure on Facebook saying, no, we're not going to do this, and was actually blocking Facebook's bid to have this blind eye turned. In fact, the vice president of Facebook, I believe her last name is Levine, she actually wrote in some of these leaked documents that she was traveling to Canada to remove or cut out this person. And it turns out that this person was removed at her request. So it really goes to show that these big corporations, what they're doing behind the scenes, the pressures that are putting on the governments, it can affect people's jobs, and especially people who are trying to do the right thing. And so I actually have a big problem with that. And I'm not sure if you've heard about the latest scandal that's happened here in Canada with our politics. But it turns out that the current government has been favoring SNC-Lavalin, which is an engineering company that got caught bribing the Gaddafis in Libya. And
oh my gosh.
anyways, it's a terrible scandal. And it just, once again, when Facebook popped up, and you can see the pressure from Facebook, from SNC-Lavalin, from all these companies, they come in promising jobs. They come in promising to improve the economy. But really, of course, they're in it for themselves. Of course, they're going to put pressure on the government to change laws, to bend the rules, and not necessarily to follow the same rules that everybody else does.
And then they just go and find a dictator somewhere in the Middle East and bribe them.
And bribe them.
That is
and it
insane.
Turns out that this data center never was built, even though a letter was eventually written to Facebook from the Canadian government once this problem was cut out, and they still didn't build it.
That is really crazy. It's interesting how this company started by this kid, you know, in Harvard, is suddenly becoming this worldwide thing that's costing people their jobs and is sounding a little sketchy, you know?
Oh, very sketchy. I mean, we all know that corporations are going to work in their self-interest, but it's just scary how far it's gone, and these leaks are coming out. So, yeah, I guess we'll see some more in the future too.
All right.
So Dan, let's turn to some happy news. And I love Apple events, and apparently there's one coming up. How about you tell us about it?
Okay, so on March 25th, it's been announced that Apple is having an event called It's Showtime. So this is supposedly going to be when Apple might announce their new streaming service. They have a lot of big people on board. Steve Carell, Jennifer Aniston, big names in the industry that might work with Apple and make shows with them. I know that there was talks of them doing like a carpool karaoke kind of a thing. So it's cool. They're going to release their own streaming thing. I mean, Netflix has just been huge. Hulu's doing great.
Prime.
Amazon Prime. And actually just last night I rented that documentary about that guy that climbed Half Dome without ropes, or El Capitan.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty cool, but I actually rented it on Google Movies or whatever it's called. And it was pretty cool. They did a good job on my Roku player. So Here's the thing about the Showtime event. We don't know for sure what they're going to announce. A lot of people want them to announce new iPads. We know typically the phones and the watches are announced in September, so I don't think we're going to get news on a new phone. There could be new streaming video hardware. We might see another Apple TV that's a little bit updated. One thing that I'm hoping for, since I have my Roku, is I really want AirPlay to come on Roku. And there's been talks of it, big rumors of it this week. And it would be great to be able to stream things from my phone and from my computer to my TV. Because I don't want to buy an Apple TV because they're like $150 or more, right? So, but yeah, that's the big news. Now, speaking of news, Apple's news service also might come out. And the rumors about Apple News is that it might be $10 a month, which sounds really steep to me. Now, look, I get it. The New York Times...
Cheaper than Netflix, isn't it?
Washington Post... Yeah, it's like $1 cheaper than Netflix, but it's news articles. And the great thing about the internet is that really for the last 30 years on the internet, we've been getting our news for free, whether it was from news groups back in the 80s or RSS feeds in the 90s or now Apple News lately, is that the articles are free. And that's the great thing about freedom of speech. You can read free things. And they've been getting their revenue from advertising. Now, the New York Times has always been doing a thing where you pay for their subscription service, which means that you have full access to all of their articles, not just their main popular ones. And I do understand that they have people they need to pay, but it's just a little frustrating to me to see this revenue come from the user, and it's going to be $10 a month, which is the same as Spotify.
Who's going to pay for it?
A lot of smart
I'm
people.
not going to pay for it.
I'm not going to pay for this. And I don't care how many Washington Post articles or how many New York Times articles there are on there. I'll read the Huffington Post or something else, or CBC or whatever, right? Fox News. It doesn't... I don't feel like I need to pay $10 a month to read the New York Times, because I can just listen to Michael Barbaro on his podcast, right, every morning. I just don't picture me pulling that kind of money out for that. If I can stream movies for $10 a month, I'm not going to do that for news.
Yeah. What I see here is this is their attempt to get money back into the news. So newspapers were the revolution of the early 20th century and late 19th century. It made billionaires. And the revolution before that was the railroad. Well, they're trying to do it again. There was a revolution of the internet. It made instant billionaires. We were just talking about Mark Zuckerberg, who's one of them. But yet here we are, where Apple is trying to go back to the heyday of the newspaper. So I don't think it's going to work to have people pay for the news. Well, the news is free and everybody has access to it, which is wonderful. It's egalitarian, and they're not going to claw it back. It's not going to happen. I think this is going to fail.
Yeah, I predict this is going to fail right away. People say that you might be able to get some magazine subscriptions out of it, which I think could be pretty cool. Sometimes there's magazines I want to check out, and I maybe would pay for that, but maybe more like $1.99 a month. I think $10 is really crazy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the exciting news out of Apple for next week. So the 25th, we'll watch for that. What do you think about all of this? Would you get an Apple streaming service, or would you prefer to just stick with Netflix?
Well, I'll have to see what's on the Apple streaming service. I'm always looking for bang for buck, and it looks like Apple is now going to be on multiple devices. One of the big announcements that happened at CES this year was Apple announced they're going to be on all these new Samsung TVs. Well, Samsung owns the Galaxy line. Like, this was crazy. This is like the enemy is making friends. And so if Apple truly is going to open up and allow non-Apple devices to stream their services, and I think they have to if they want to make the money, then yeah, I'll seriously look at it. There's stiff competition. They're going to be competing with Disney, which is putting out their new service, as well as the giant Netflix, which built its empire. And they, as you mentioned earlier, Hulu and Prime and what is it, YouTube Red, the YouTube one, that, or Premium they call it now. There's a lot of streaming options out there, and it's getting expensive. So, we'll have to see. Can this many sharks swim in the water, or do we need just a few big ones?
Hopefully just a few big ones. I don't want this to turn into me paying $40 a month for streaming for all of the different things. Hopefully I'll be able to rip off my roommates.
Yeah, I'll just go back to what I was doing before, which will remain unspoken.
I know what you're talking about. Okay, well, speaking of shady things, so the U.S. actually told Germany to stop using Huawei equipment or to lose some intelligence access. So I just read this article today, and I find it fascinating. And so we had talked on the podcast before about Germany and about how they were considering using Huawei networks and antennas and 5G and technology, and America was not excited about it. And they came out again and said that they're going to stop sharing their intelligence with them if they go forward with this. The Wall Street Journal, which you might have to subscribe to next week for $10, is reporting that the United States has told Germany to drop Huawei from its future plans or to risk losing access to some U.S. intelligence. The U.S. says that the Chinese company's equipment could be used for espionage, a concern that Huawei says is unfounded. The Trump administration's been pressing allies to end their relationship with Huawei, but Germany, moving ahead with its plans, has not moved to ban the company from its network. So according to the Journal, the letter sent from the U.S. ambassador to Germany warns that if the U.S. that the U.S. will stop sharing their secrets if they go for this. So this is interesting to me because it's allies from the Western world that are fighting over using Eastern technologies. What's your opinion on this, Matt?
Well, I think there is a little bit of truth to worry. I think that China has proven that they can't be trustworthy when it comes to espionage and stealing trade secrets, and that's concerning. It's also concerning with how embedded Huawei is in the Chinese government and to what lengths the Chinese government is going to protect Huawei, even though Huawei has been caught red-handed in multiple cases. So I am concerned about it. I don't think the United States is out of order by telling Germany that if they continue to use hardware that could be compromised, that they lose some security status. I think that they're perfectly allowed to say that. Are they going too far? Perhaps. But I'm going to err on the side of caution with this one. The more we've seen Huawei and the Chinese government get involved, the more concerned I am that Huawei is not independent of the Chinese government.
Wow, interesting. Now, it looks here like you have an article about Russia and the electronic curtain. That's kind of a funny play on words. What's going on there?
Yeah, so it's the same thing. So China has this great firewall of China, and that is basically their closed off internet, so to speak, where they prevent things that are potentially against the Chinese government from being found. So good luck finding anything on Tiananmen Square. Even though hundreds of thousands of people were involved, you just won't find anything when you're in China. And if you do, you're instantly going to be flagged. And that's just one of many things that the Great Firewall of China is blocking. Well,
and your Social Security is going to drop too, right? The credit system.
That's right.
As from our
That's
last
what we
podcast.
talked about. Yeah. So Russia's going along the same lines. They're actually passing 3 laws. I believe they're all rolled up into the same bill that's being put forward to the Duma at the Kremlin right now. So basically, there are 3 parts of it. So number 1, it's a crime to spread fake news. That's the first thing. Now, the irony of this is if Russia didn't invent fake news, because I guess propaganda's been around for a long time, they've definitely perfected it. So we've seen it with the U.S. elections. We've seen it with the war in the Ukraine. That's actually where they kind of perfected what was going on, and they were able to spread a lot of fake news, blatant lies, actually, about what was going on in the Ukraine to get the Russian speaking population in support of the taking over of Crimea. So the irony of it is thick. But then you also have to ask yourself, well, what is fake news and who gets to decide what is fake news and when do you cross the line? And if you leave it up to a government that has a shady past, and not just a past, but a current present that is all about propaganda and fake news, then no, I don't trust this at all. And they are making it a crime to spread what they would call fake news. So in part of that, the second part is it will also be a crime to insult the Russian government. So if me speaking right now is insulting the Russian government because I feel like this clamping down is wrong and that's an insult to them, I would be breaking the law if I was currently sitting in Russia. So, this is really shady stuff with really blurred edges. There are no boundaries. This is just allowing a government to say, I'm insulted, you go to jail. I think what you're saying is fake news, you go to jail. And then the third part of the bill is to allow Russia's telecoms, and I believe there's 6 of them, to begin creating this electronic curtain that will basically encompass all of Russia and prevent their citizens from getting information from the outside.
Unless they use some kind of a network to get out, right? A VPN.
Sure, and that's what the Chinese citizens do. We've had some of our listeners reach out to us via VPNs and make comments on YouTube, which is currently blocked in China. So Yeah, there's always going to be ways to get around it, but it's still a blocking of free speech. Now, interesting, the person behind this is actually a former KGB agent. Sound familiar to Putin?
Oh, yeah.
And he's the same spy that ended up being targeted, or not targeted by, but identified by the British MI6, and they identified him as the assassin of Andrei Lugovi. His name is Andrei Lugove, of Alexander Litvinenko. And Alexander Litvinenko was a big critic of Putin. Then all of a sudden, he's dying of radioactive poisoning. And it turns out that he was fed a radioactive pill when he had met with Andrei Lugovoy. So this, it comes from the wrong person. It's coming from a government that's known for cracking down in fake news. And they're already jailing people who are tweeting on Twitter, and they're jailing people who are posting on Facebook. So it's not like these laws are going to give them any more power. It's just legitimizing what they're doing to clamp down on freedom of speech in Russia.
Wow, that's so fascinating. And it's cool, since you've lived in Russia, you can kind of give us more of a feel of what that's like. But the internet was out when you were there, but it wasn't quite as big, right?
No, it was, they had internet cafes. That was pretty much the only place you could get the internet, or else at the universities. But now it's quite prolific. Certain parts of Russia will have just as good, if not better, connections to the internet, especially in Moscow, St. Petersburg, a lot of the main centers. You would have excellent access. And so it's a great way for the people of Russia to be able to get their information and kind of combat the fake news, or let's use the P word, propaganda, that has been quite prolific throughout Russia. But that's exactly what this electronic curtain is supposed to do, is to clamp down on outside information.
Cool. Okay, so now I have an article about the new phone, the Galaxy S10, and that their facial recognition was fooled by a video of the phone owner. So this is crazy because the S10 just came out. Like, you've had that S9 for about a year now, right? And it's been pretty cool.
Yep.
And you've got
I've
facial
loved it,
recognition on yours, right?
Sure, I do, yeah. But it uses iris scanning. So
Okay.
the S10 dropped the iris scan, and I believe they use the ultrasonic fingerprint is their highest level of biometric security, but they will also allow you to unlock your phone with a regular face scan, just like OnePlus does.
Right, so it sounds to me like if you have an S10, you should probably unlock your phone with your fingerprint, not your face. Because this article says that experts have proven once again that facial recognition on modern devices remains hilariously insecure and can be bypassed by using simple tricks, such as showing an image or a video in front of a device's camera. The latest device to fall victim to this is the Galaxy S10's facial recognition feature. It's a very weak security, according to Louis Hilstinger, a smartphone reviewer, and he's actually on YouTube, so we'll post a link up to his video. So he showed a demo video of him on his YouTube channel last week, just like putting his S10 and then another phone like this and showing a video of himself and it unlocking. So pretty silly.
Yeah, I really enjoy Unbox Therapy. Have you ever followed him?
No. You like watching him?
Yeah, apparently he's out of Toronto. He's the guy that was behind the iPhone bend gate. Do you remember when the iPhones were all bending and, you put them in your pocket, you sit them on, they're all bending. So he was the guy behind that. In fact, Apple's kind of blacklisted him from all their events because of Bendgate and some of the other criticisms that he's put out there on Apple. He loves to attack security areas, so parts of the phone that you believe are secure. So I'm not surprised that he's gone after Samsung. I know he's a big Android fan, And maybe that's just because Apple won't send him free iPhones, but he still buys them and tests them out and goes on security inspections. So yeah, he's great. I highly recommend him. So any of our listeners who haven't checked out Unbox Therapy, check him out. He's pretty good.
That's pretty cool. So you have an article here about Google wanting to get rid of the password. How am I supposed to use my password? One password.
Well, the password is getting kind of archaic and out of date. And the problem is that with the computing power that we have now is that we can crack passwords really fast just by trying every option. Even if your password's 25 characters long, these computers can blitz through them quite fast and be able to crack these passwords, and some hackers are doing that. And so there's lots of different things you can do to get around it. So, but what Google wants to do is just remove passwords altogether. So they announced this in Barcelona, and this was a couple of weeks ago at WMC, the World Mobile Congress. And they said that Android, the next version of Android, will be what's called FIDO 2 certified. So that stands for Fast Identity Online. And it's basically a password service that uses your biometric fingerprint or security keys to log into accounts on your phone. So it's similar to using your face print or a face scan for mobile payment. Now the scan is what